Good morning. If you can hear me, you're muted.
Here, unmute. Start
There
video.
you go. I gotcha. Hi.
Hey, there we are.
Good, my friend.
You too. Sorry, I've used Zoom like twice, and I've always had complications for some reason. I'm like,
You've only Zoom. You don't Zoom that much?
I don't, not at all.
God, I feel like I'm on it all the time. Wait a minute.
Well, that's great.
I don't know. Is that great? Or is that just me? I don't know.
Never leaving the house.
Well, there's that. I
There's
mean,
that, yeah.
I'm not leaving the house very often. There's my daughter in the background. Hi.
Hey, I was trying to do it on my laptop with my professional microphone, and I was like, I'm going to do it on the phone.
Yeah, you sound pretty good, actually.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah,
and,
the phone.
And I'll run it through a noise reduction thing.
Oh, okay, awesome.
Well, my wife just informed me she needs me to film something of her.
Okay.
So I think we should, if you're ready, let's begin, shall we? You look good.
You too.
No, I don't. Here, let me see if I can.
Oh my gosh.
I can,
you got the ponytail thing if you want. Look at that.
There, I'll fluff up a little. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes it backfires.
I'm going to fluff.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I'm having more luck with like around 30 minutes or so, give or take. So
Even
I'm
less.
trying to keep an eye on it. It seems like more people like that.
Yeah, or 20 or whatever you want. That's cool.
I think 30 is like a sweet spot. So let's
we'll
try.
Okay.
Okay, here we go. Hi, everybody. John Lear here, and I am interviewing a guest that I've interviewed before, but we have not mined everything from him. His name is Mark Sanderson. He's a writer. He's a writing teacher. He's a writing coach. He's an author and a wonderful human being. Good to talk to you again, my friend. Yes, get that book up. I'll do mine. Look at this. I have it right here.
Oh, yes.
Right here. We can read it. We can read it in sync.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
How are you?
I'm well, John. How are you? It's been, my gosh, last year just disappeared, right?
I know. We were able to see each other face to face.
Yes. A few times.
At one point.
You invited me to your beautiful home, and
I know. That was a wonderful day. And you were having phone problems that day, which is a very stressful thing for people to go through.
Yes, the phone just died, and there was, and I tried to you don't think about it. It was like I needed to contact you, and I was like, well, if I can get there, I'm a person who really is like, I'm never late, and
we are. We're married to them. They've got us. Soon we'll all have chips in our head, Mark. Soon we'll all have that, and then we won't ever lose our phone. Well, it's good. So what have you, okay. So let's talk about the state of the industry just a little bit during this, this horror show we call a pandemic. What can you give me a little, from your point of view, what have you seen over the course of this year?
Well, I've seen two of my films that were supposed to go last year not go into production, and one was delayed, and then it ended up not going, and the other had financiers and it looked good, and I don't know if it would have went or not, but let's hope it did if people were that interested. And then that, because nobody knew what was going on.
I know. Yeah.
They never, the projects never came back, sadly. And then I was able to.
That's the weird thing about Hollywood. Once they slip away for whatever reason, even if it has nothing to do with the project, it's very difficult to get that momentum again. Which
it is.
And people from who aren't in the business are always curious, like, okay, so your pilot didn't go, but it was a good pilot. Can't you just, sell it to somebody else? And you're like, I know it sounds crazy, but no.
Yeah, and these were things, that again were assignments, so I didn't own them, and so it's not up. It's really sad and tragic when it happens, because you're like, what about if you just knock on the thing and call you know, and you don't know the machinations of behind the scenes stuff. And it's just like, well, you know, hey, it's still, you know, and it's funny because the one assignment I wrote 10 years ago, and it was a Christmas film, and suddenly it came out of nowhere, and it was like found, if it was made, it'd be like found money. It's like I wrote that thing off, and suddenly it's like, oh wait, excuse me, you guys, you still are, oh, that's fantastic. And then but you know, and so, but I was able to write 2 specs,
Right.
which is using the downtime, and wrote a short film that was shot finally, thank goodness,
Cool.
in a casino.
I'd like to see that in a casino.
Yeah, it's a casino heist film, and
Awesome.
it was, you know, a lot of false starts because it was great because you could film in the casino and there was nobody there. When in the entire history of the planet, for a short film, would you have an entire empty casino like a movie set?
That's weird. Which casino?
Well, it ended up being one in Laughlin.
Yeah, I know the one.
There were 2 outside of Vegas that we were dealing with, and they were like, yes, you can stay in the hotel, which no one there. And then once you guys have COVID, you know, I mean, tested, once you're in, you can't leave the premises.
Right. You're hermetically sealed.
Yeah, but you're in this like movie set, but no, it's a real casino. It's like, oh my God, it'd be brilliant. You could do whatever you want for 10 days. And that fell through. And the one had an old monorail that didn't work anymore. So we wrote that into the script, and that fell through. Then the next one had a small airstrip behind it. So it's like, all right, they escape in an airplane. All right, so we switched it. And then in Laughlin, it ended up being the escape in a boat across the Colorado River.
I was going to say it had to be a boat or jet skis if it's in Laughlin. Laughlin is such a weird place. I've performed there doing stand-up, and it's such a strange place because it's out in the middle of nowhere. It's out in the middle of the desert. And it's these, you know, they're beautiful casinos and beautiful rooms and everything. It's beautiful. But then there's this river that runs, or canal that runs through it. And so people are either jet skiing or gambling. It's the most bizarre culture.
Yeah. And when you come down on it, there's a beautiful opening shot we have that comes down on it. And you're like, it's not Tahoe because that's a river. And you're like, what? You know, it's got kind of the Vegas-y lights and, you know, this and that. And
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. I mean, I've never been, but
that's cool.
So anyway, that was a bright spot that finally was done, and it's out to festivals and will be seen soon. But
oh, that's great. I want to see that. And were you on set when it was shooting?
I was not able to go, sadly, because of
COVID.
Scheduling problems. Well, no, just scheduling problems.
Okay.
I wanted to go, but I couldn't, and so it was like,
but COVID is a lot. You know, that's the weird thing. I worked on a film. Let's see, in September, October. I want to say September, and it was a feature. It was, you know, relatively low budget, but it was fully union and COVID and everything, so COVID compliant.
Right.
Which was very strange. Everybody got tested every day. Was it every day or every other day? And there were all these rules about who could be on the set, who couldn't. It was very strange. And it was still fun as hell, but it took a lot of the fun out of being on a set. It made it much more business, you know, and less play.
Was that shot locally? Local LA?
Yeah, it was in the Valley.
Yeah.
It was at one location, only 2 actors. So it was built for COVID in a lot of ways.
I see.
And it was about COVID too. It was kind of. This writer was very smart. He jumped on it and had a great script, and people were like, "Okay, yeah, this is, you know." And it was a comedy, so it had fun without like belittling all of the death and carnage.
Sure.
It also was able to look at like what it does to us sociologically, and it was good. It's a good film.
But you can see how, you know, it's adapted, and now it's just like, okay, these are the protocols. Let's go to work and make movies until we, you know. And I was invited to the set. My friend shooting a huge studio picture in London, and he said, if you happen to, you know, pop by Italy, you could stop back on your way home and you could go to the set, which is, I'd be like, oh my gosh. And then COVID hit, and then they were locked down over there and he couldn't even come home. And so I was like,
Yeah.
But the protocols, and then the lead actor got tested positive, and it started being like this whole thing. And
right. Then
so,
you're
but
like
there's
locked
still,
in.
movies are still being made, and things are still being made. So the good thing about writing is that we can always do it anywhere, in our cave or whatnot. It doesn't
Right.
still need that script or whatever to be made, to have a production out of it.
Yes. And I'm always amazed at writers like you, and I guess the most famous is Stephen King. People who can just continue to do it every single day, or I don't know how often you write, but
Okay.
that continue to pump it out. My friend Jay like wrote 3 novels during the and I'm like, dude, first of all, don't tell me that. It just makes me feel like a loser. Just quietly go about your business of being a writing machine. But you wrote 2 specs, so that's quite a bit as well.
Yeah, it's good. One was with a director who I'd worked with before, and so we said, and we had interest at a company, and he said, "You want to write this on sort of spec with me?" And I said, "Yeah," because if they're interested, at least we own it, and utilize it. And it was such a great thing because I was doing 2 kind of at once. And he goes, "Are you moonlighting on me?" I said, "I got to work on the sci-fi thing with my other partner, And traditionally, I don't have writing partners.
And
I
now
did when
here you are with 2.
yeah, and 2 projects. I traditionally like, but it worked out well, and in both scripts came out really well.
What do you think about that, writing 2 things at once? What are the pros and what are the cons? Some people are like, no, you've got to focus on one thing at a time, and other people don't say
Yeah,
that.
I get anxious and anxiety sort of ridden, because I had a while ago 2 producers saying blah blah blah, and then I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have 2 jobs at the same time, and I'm like, those are champagne problems.
Yeah, yeah, they
Everybody,
are.
all the work you can get and worry about it later. There's so much time in a day,
Yeah,
and gotta. But I don't know. It's weird because it's hard to click off for me when I'm writing and I'm involved in a project. I'm living it. I'm seeing it in my head, and then I put on pause, and then I come back to it. But to do that with 2 things, I don't know. It just, for me, it starts getting, but I take that back. One time I had 2 jobs, and I said, you know what, you're going to have to learn how to stack projects, which is what it's
yeah,
called,
yeah,
stacking. And you're never going to have more than 1 credit a year if you don't start stacking.
yeah.
I'm saying if you get blessed and you have a couple of jobs offered to you, you can't say, well, I'm working on this one, and you let the other one go. Someone else will have it. And you're
I
like, wait,
know.
I
What am
could
I
have done.
doing? Yeah,
But you always, and I'm sure you're the same way, you always want to do your best, and you don't want to, you know, um, let the other project down. And it's just hard because there's only so much, time. But I said, you're gonna have to train yourself, with the voice saying, you're gonna have to train yourself if you want this. And
yeah.
it's possible, and to adapt and change,
And it's the bottom line, like you said, it's the job. The job is that you have 2 partners wanting to write 2 scripts at the same
Yeah.
time. That's a champagne problem.
Yeah.
And you just gotta do it. Gotta
And
do it.
those 2 last year were specs. So, okay, we can't get, and it was different because I had a writing partner years and years ago. I say in my book, and we were partners. So everything we worked on was at the same time. And when we left
Right.
the room, didn't think about it or work on it. We came
Right.
back together. So everything decisions that we made, I was at the keyboard. He was PT Barnum walking around with the big ideas, and it worked because he had no interest in sitting at the keyboard. I was like, everything we have is going to funnel through this and go into format. And he would always say, see that diploma on the wall? He'd say, that's the reason, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, we joke around, but it worked. Every writing
Yeah.
partner has their own thing. And these were just like one-off partner projects.
Right.
just like, okay, my friend came to me with a sci-fi idea that he had, and I was like, oh my gosh. And it's rare that someone does that and it clicks, and I go, I want to be a part of that. How can we do this? And then we start working.
That's a fabulous moment, when
Yeah,
somebody, you come together and you're like, oh, this is great. Yeah, it's my partner and I would alternate writing. So we would
right.
break, but it was TV, so it's slightly different. We would break the whole the whole episode together,
Together,
and
yeah.
then we'd usually split up acts. Like I'd take act 1 and 3, and she'd take 2 and 4 or whatever, and then we would trade and note them, and
Right.
then agree on the notes, and then the other one would take whatever the first one wrote, and that was kind of the way we went about it, which was great. It was great, but
Yeah.
really, what made it, the real writing was in the, because it was comedy, because it was television. The real writing was in the breaking of it, because then, because that, all the moments and the lotsies and the comedic beats and all of that stuff was already decided upon, and then the dialogue. But
And the fun stuff, yeah.
yeah. Okay, so and now, do you feel that now? I'm just started to kind of get the vibe from people that things are actually
Mhm.
beginning to open up, and that there is sort of an optimistic view, and it makes
Sure.
sense because we can all see the vaccines coming, and everybody's feeling like there's light
Yeah.
at the end of the tunnel. Are you seeing that on the film side of things?
Well, I can't speak for all of Hollywood. Just my little fiefdom.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I mean, producers I work with have been able to make 6 films, 7 films, since
right,
then. And
right.
so it's like, well, that's not up to their capacity, but they're managing, and start to say, hey, give me pitches, give me stuff. Come on, man. It's like,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I gotta, and I have to get off my ass, and start generating. You
Yeah.
got to, it sounds, people who aren't, or beginning writers, it sounds so, I don't know, like a machine, but if you're working, it's the way it is.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
stop generating, that you pass you by, and it's like, oh, there's this other writer. Oh, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and also keeping, it keeps you sharp. I mean, it's just
Do
the way it is. It
you
becomes a
keep
job.
like a notebook or a digital version of that where you just throw random ideas down that aren't
Yeah.
necessarily apropos of anything? They're just like, this could be
Yes.
something for later or whatever.
Yeah. Could be a just a sentence or a character or something. And I've been trying to work on a spec. It's a sci-fi, but I can't quite sit down. It's sort of dancing around me,
Yeah.
or no, I'm dancing around it,
Yeah.
waiting
Yeah.
to go, hey, can I have this dance?
Yes.
And then step on the floor and then be like, okay, but I've got the opening, I have the ending, so those are always good things, right?
Huge,
I
huge
have
things.
the world, I have the theme, sort of, and it just have to get the nuts and bolts of it. There's intricacies because I don't want to say it's a heist, but it's sort of like a long-term thing that's been going on that someone finds out about, and then that person becomes like, oh my gosh, and then they test the person's will to say, well, why don't you come and join us and do this? And his morals not allow him to, so he becomes in danger.
Ooh,
Uh,
love it. Love it.
it's a science fiction movie, but you know, again, thinking, oh, I'm going to sell this, or it's when I lock onto an idea like that, I really take it to heart. I say, I have to write this regardless of thinking about sound.
Which is probably what I imagine is what saved you in the end, because we
Yeah,
keep talking about the mechanics of the business and the things you have to do. You have to be able to stack. You have to be able to write when you don't want to. You
sure.
have to be able to interpret other people's ideas. And all of that without the passion to do it would run thin, I would think, really quickly. But
Yeah,
if you have the passion for writing and making movies in general, then the mechanical businessy side is just that. It's just one side of it.
sure. Yeah, yeah. You have to. I mean, otherwise, you'd be like any job. Many people don't like their job, And so you could get to a point where you're like, this is drudge work, because it's hard, writing is like not easy. And, there's a process, and it's like this weird, I mean, I still have friends who think I color with crayons, like, oh, you got to write. Like, it's like, yeah, right. Serious. It's a job. Well, you put those words on paper, and yeah, I'm sorry, it's not you do, but it's a legitimate job. It takes a skill and a talent and a process.
Yeah.
And there's a contract and there's money, and yeah, it's a freaking job. But I mean, it's
I
like,
think
well,
a lot of people, a lot of normies out there, non-writers think friends of mine think see me as like, okay, you get to sit down with your pipe and you get to just type away. It sounds like there's a fireplace and
yeah.
like writing is rarely for me. Maybe you're different, but it's rarely for me. Is it fun? Like I wouldn't call it fun. I would call
No.
it intense, and but I would never call it. I would never describe it as fun or easy. Like it's not like something I want to. Oh, I want to write. It's more like I gotta write. I gotta write this.
No, yeah, and then you got to write this because it's your job. I mean,
Yeah.
specs are different, obviously, but yeah, it's hard because the fun parts are when you see it and it's exactly how you're envisioned, and you're like, yeah, or that next morning you get up and then you take them off the cliff, and then this, when it hits those high points, and then there's all that other stuff after it's done, the criticism and failure, the stuff that says, do you really want this?
Yeah.
Can you handle it? And a lot of beginning writers don't, that rejection part is hard. You have to detach, and they're so attached to every word, and well, but you can't defend like that. You defend when you can, but you got to let go, man, because collaboration, is the number one thing when you start to want to work. And I assume that all writers, I have heard some people, like I've done those interviews on YouTube with Film Courage, and some people say, I'm going to write my spec the way I want it, and if it never gets made, I don't care. At least I wrote it, and that's the end of it. I'm like, great, good for you. I always wanted to work in the business, so
I want to actually see it filmed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you talk about that, because I think this is a big issue for people who are kind of just starting. And there's a lot of talk when I'm helping people about ownership, copyright, and contracts. And there seems to be, and we've talked about this a little bit, but there seems to be an over examination or obsession with holding on to it.
Yes.
And concern about being ripped off, which I get. It's a concern, but it's kind of like, and people do get ripped off, and you hear about that, and I certainly have my own experiences. But it's sort of like getting hit by a bus. I mean, what are you going to do about it other than keep your eyes open and if you I find that people are overly concerned with that, with contracts and things. They won't, like, even independent writers will want NDAs signed before they'll have somebody like me read it. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'll sign your NDA. But
what I do is I reverse that. I have now a agreement that they have to agree to when I consult. And it doesn't have to be signed. It says on it, if you pay me and we agree, you agree to all these terms. And it basically protects me and them by saying that I don't own this, and anything that I give you idea wise and help, you own. I don't lay claim to this.
Right.
Clearly stated. And the fact that you can't come back on me 5 years from now and say, your character was named Mark, I had a character, I'm suing you. You know what I mean? Because you and I are exposed to many things, just like, the studios are and stuff. And they have very draconian. They say, even if we make something, that's exactly like yours, you can't sue us. You're like,
right. Every character you've ever created under our employ, we own.
In this, I'd love in this galaxy or universe, you're like, you guys own another network somewhere on Mars.
Yeah.
In perpetuity.
In perpetuity throughout the universe. That's a phrase you see in a lot of contracts.
Throughout the Marvel universe, you mean?
No, every universe. And now it's going to be multiverse.
Yeah.
because
Right. No, but I can understand. But I always like to say, this isn't going to be your only script. You know what I mean? And if it is, you can't think. I mean, like I said, I'm not bragging, but I finished the one of the two specs was number 41 for me. And
wow,
that's,
Jesus, Mark, that's a ton of feature scripts.
yeah, it could sound good. It's like, well, why didn't all of them sell? Yeah, I
No,
wish they.
no, but if you stack them up, it's probably taller than you, my friend.
Uh,
You've outwritten your own height.
yeah. Well, when I hit 40, it was a milestone, not age, but that too. But the 41, I was like, wow, I tipped over to that. And 23 were paid for. I'm including the.
Wow, that's a good percent. Over half you were
Yeah,
paid
not bad.
for.
One was a
Not
spec.
bad. That's amazing.
Yeah, but they're not all been made, obviously. So a lot of
That's a whole different ball game. That part
yeah,
we can't control.
that they sit on a shelf, and you're like, can I buy that back? Because that was a pretty damn good script, and I can't buy it back. I mean,
No.
but I'm like, hey, we can change it to take place during Christmas, and they're like you said earlier, not interested. They moved on, and you as a writer haven't. You're just like, but that's still good, man. That's in the arsenal, and they've got, they don't care,
they don't. I don't think they understand how much goes into writing it. They're not writers. They're not people who
yeah,
make stuff. So many of the gatekeepers in Hollywood are people who have never made anything. And
yeah,
they call themselves a producer, but that's making calls and scheduling things and convincing people is not
yeah.
actually making.
And a producer
something.
is such a term, like you hear it thrown around, and it's like, what have you produced? Well, I'm in development. Okay, me too. You actually have produced like soup to nuts A, B, C, and D. Now I produced independent film A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
But I don't consider myself a producer because it's not what I do. I mean, I've done it once, but it's not like, oh, I'm a producer as a writer. Yeah,
you don't lead with that. Yeah.
No.
Speaking of producers, Jamie Tarsis, who was a powerhouse in television in Los Angeles, just recently passed away. And she was one of the producers. She gave me my first deal in LA. Well, it started at TriStar, and then it went over to NBC, and she was at NBC, head of comedy at the time. Right. And I worked with her, and I've worked with her throughout my career on and off, and she was one of those exceptions, one of those producers who had in their soul, in their gut, it's about making something. Right. And her notes and the way she protected the writers and the creators was unique. She really was always focused on what was best for the project.
Sure.
And even the way she couched her notes were so respectful and so thoughtful. You never felt like she was just talking out her ass as she was talking. You know how sometimes you're getting notes from somebody and you're like, you just thought of that right here.
Right.
You haven't even thought about it. I mean, now I have to go back and change the second act because of some idea you had right this moment on this call.
Yeah.
She was never like that. And Brandon Tartikoff, I worked with him once towards the end of his career, right before he passed away. It sounds like I'm the death angel here, but I worked with him, and he was the same way. We worked on this show together, this small show that and I was a writer and an actor on it. He kept slipping me jokes throughout the shooting. He got on little pieces of paper. He goes, "Hey, John, I got another one for you." And they were terrible. I was like, Brandon, these are not. Every now and then but it didn't deter him. He's like, okay, don't use it. And every now and then it'd be like, Brandon, that's hilarious. We're using that. But he was so unique. Those types of people, so
true
unique.
Collaborate. Not just like you're a scribe. Go type the thing that I have a producer say, I had a couple ideas coming back on the plane from Cannes. Oh, really? It's just like, broad strokes, in it with the thing. Go do it. Do what? What page are we talking about?
Yeah.
I mentioned the book. The worst note ever I had was the emotional highs and lows have to be higher and lower. Oh, the emotional valleys. The emotional peaks and valleys have to be higher and lower. Go, 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 go.
That's like when you're an actor and a director, they come up to you and just say, "Can you do it better? Just be better." Okay. We actually had a note, and maybe I've told you this before. I never know, but we got a note from a network saying, "Can you make it 13% funnier?" And we thought they were joking, and we were like, "Well, we can definitely do 11." They're like, "Okay, okay." In all seriousness, we were like, "Oh my God, they're not joking," because it's kind of a funny joke. Make it 13% funnier, but they meant it. They meant it.
They must have had some focus group, and they put it in the algorithm and said 13%. And hit that threshold. You go, well, 13 is an unlucky number, so can we do it 14?
Right. 13's prime. Prime numbers are funny, which is true, by the way. I think.
Yeah, we had a guy read our script. It was a movie about these older guys go up to Cooperstown, you know, it was sort of older guy road picture, which is death. Like, who cares about guys in their 70s? You know? But at the time, it would have been great with certain actors.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a journey of life thing, and it was a great story. They have to put back an artifact that the guy had he saw an artifact as a kid. He caught a ball, you know, and then he saw it later in the museum, and he went crazy and said, "I got to have that." And then they did this sort of heist. It was great. So the guy reads it. We walk in the office, and he's got his like a baseball bat or something. He's swinging it like he's trying to practice. And he goes, "Come in." We're like, "What the fuck's going on?" And then he says, "You know, I got 2 words for you." He's on the phone speaker. Fran Drescher. "Okay, we'll talk." "Okay, later." He says, "Guys, hi." He said, "Okay, I read the script." And he goes, "I understand why they went up and back." But he's looking and we're like, he didn't read this thing. He skipped half of it. And we look at each other, and he said, "Somebody's got to die in this movie." And we're like, "Die?" He goes, "Yeah, you know, because they're older guys. I think one of them has to die." We're like, "Well, that would totally change X, Y, Z, and it's a whole different movie." It's a, you know, and he goes, "Well," and so we said, "Well, could he like have a death scare, like he's got a bad virus, or, you know, and he ate sausage and pepper sandwiches, this guy." So I said, "Maybe he has agita." You know, he's like, "Oh," you know, he's like, he thinks, he said, "It's funny, right? He thinks it's a heart attack, but it's actually gas, you know, and thing." So we came to a common thing. He said, "Well, okay." And then later they were like, "Well, could we get rid of the 3 older guys and make it his young nephew or his grandson and he?" And we're like, now we're starting, you know, I'm just like, oh. And that was
you pulled like, too many threads out of the sweater.
And that was even, that was before they were going to buy it, you know. It's
right. Like, they want you to answer all that for free and then tell you that they're not going to buy it.
You're like, "Hey, put, you know, make the check clear. It's my heart's desire." They're all dead. The fire crash. They don't even make it to the museum. The car crashes and they burn. How's that? And then aliens come down, and then that's a whole different movie. And then they else tried it. That's part of the business. That's the rough part. I think that you know, yeah, when you do right, and you know, the assignment work is not that you don't care about it. Of course, you care tremendously, right. But you know, you could be, you know, taken off from it. It could be altered. It could be changed. That's why when you do see it finally, you're like, "Oh wow, 85% of it is mine," you know. Because,
right. And even bad notes can and I hate to say this out loud, but even bad notes can jumble up your brain in a way that the script can improve. And great writers know how to take a bad note, answer the note so that the exec feels heard, but make their piece better. I mean, that's really when I see people do that, I'm like, always just, that's amazing. That's amazing, because it's a win-win for everybody.
Because there's always something behind their product, but they may not articulate it, because many producers, as we know, don't know how to talk to writers. There's no school to go to. It's like, I came from an MBA and blah, blah, blah. You know, it's like, there's no school unless you're also a writer to be like, "Oh yeah, you know, the blah, blah, blah." And there's a way to talk to writers instead of just, you know, you're a scribe and I had a producer once make notes in the margins for the dialogue. And he said, "Just here are the changes." I was like, I didn't know you were that much of a collaborator. You know, write the movie. And by the way, the dialogue was, you know, on the note. I mean, it's just the worst ever. And I'm like, this doesn't even sound like the character.
Yeah.
And so I was like, maybe I'll take what you want and kind of, you know, but he literally was saying, "I made the changes here. Just go."
Yeah.
I said, "We have here, do that." Because it's kind of like, you know, cut and paste, but it's really, you know,
wow.
That how much you think of writers. Yeah. I mean, how do we have to fight since the inception of the business for our sort of respect is like, guess what? Without this, and I don't think any writer, I can't say that, but I know we don't walk around the set and go, yeah, your job is because of me.
Right. Right.
And you know what? It is. All these 100 people, it's because we sat somewhere and, yeah, with guidance, and collaboration. But, if a producer wanted to be a writer, they'd be a writer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good note to shift gears here, because we're coming to the end. Yeah. And I want to talk about now what you're up to these days. What's going on for Mark Sanderson?
I opened the consulting shingle. There's people out there who've written things over, but I haven't been doing a lot of it. Last year, more, with COVID, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm focusing on pitches now. I'm going to be going out to my people.
Yeah.
Say not Zoom, but more as a paragraph of one sheet just to get them in. Yeah. Okay. Then we
sizzle page, Mark. Is that what you're talking about? Somebody called that a sizzle page. I was like, oh my God, can we call it something else?
Yeah. I call it a one sheet, but I don't
know.
Yeah. It needs more sizzle. Yeah. Okay. Sizzling. Remember the bacon that was like not quite, and then wrapping up the short film just completed, and it's going to festivals, so we'll see how that goes. And then the one thriller spec that I wrote, we're waiting, and then the sci-fi spec, we're about to do another pass, my partner and myself, because we think, we got a lot of notes last year from trusted people.
Yeah.
And then, you sort of, with that, when you go, okay, one person didn't like that, the other completely loved it, the other one didn't have a problem. You sort of, the other person liked it exactly the way it is. And we were kind of like, so you take them all, and then you say, well, I get it. More people wanted to see it as a smaller film, and we kind of agreed. Instead of like the military, without getting into specific sci-fi movie, like, Spielberg-esque, where the military and the government are trying to put the thing, and they said, well, bring it down. And it's a small team. It's not the bigger thing.
That's good.
Yeah, but we had that feeling anyway, saying, okay, but we have two versions. Could be that big one and, the small one. So
I feel like the next time we talk, we should just focus the whole conversation on notes and taking notes and friends' notes and all, getting feedback. That would be a great, because there's a whole world to mine there.
Yeah, and it only comes with having experienced it. And like I said, if your grandmother wants to read the script, great. But if she's an exec at Warner Brothers, even better.
Exactly. And your grandma.
Not to bash grandma, but has she ever read a screenplay before? Because it's kind of a clunky, weird document. You know what I mean? So
yes,
I early on when I first started writing, I'd give, because you have friends who go, oh, I want to read your script.
Right. And
you're like, yeah. And you want that feedback, like, oh, you did a good job. And they read it and they go, that was great. And you're like, that's not the notes I need. But that's the notes that beginning writers are looking for, is the praise.
Yeah.
You have to find that internal praise, like, yay, I finished the script. I'm very happy. But you want to go to the roof and shout, I finished it. Hey. And the person walking by going, hey, you want to read the script? You want to read it? You want to read it?
Yeah.
And then when that first, those first few, like, oh, it's fantastic, come, and then that crushing, criticism.
Yes.
How can you talk about my thing?
Yes.
Constructive criticism. Well, you have to get used to that. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we're going to delve into. Okay, so where can people find you? First of all, Mark Sanderson, A Screenwriter's Journey to Success. I highly recommend this book. It's such a great tips, tricks, and tactics to survive as a working screenwriter in Hollywood. And you are a working screenwriter in Hollywood. And
I try when they allow it. Yeah.
And your tips, tricks, and tactics are sound, and I fully recommend it. So where can people find? Where do people find you?
Books on Amazon. You can find me on Twitter at ScriptCat. I'm on Instagram, Mark Sanderson _scriptcat. I have a website, 5o'clockblue.net. It's a one word. I have a blog, My Blank Page, that's on WordPress. You can go to my website, and I'm on Clubhouse now, which you are.
Dude, we've got to, yeah, we will need to talk about that because I need to do a little clubhousing.
And I'm going to be having with a very good friend and co-screenwriter, our own club and room. Screenwriter.
Wow. Well, tell me about that because I want to figure this Clubhouse thing out. You got to bring me in.
Yeah.
I need to figure it out. Figure me out.
There's a velvet rope with Clubhouse. You have to be invited. Which you?
Yeah, I've been invited, so I have the thing. I just don't know how to use it.
Oh, you'd be fantastic in there because it's room. Picture like Zoom except without the visuals. It's
yes.
Voice. And so there was a room I was in last night. Shane Black was talking about taking questions. And there was another room I was in, 5,000 people were in.
Wow.
It was the co-founder of Netflix. And he was talking about, everything from whatever. And what happens basically is the moderators are on stage, so to speak. People who are in the next tier, and then all the rest are in the audience. And the moderator can bring you up when you click your hands, It's very cool.
Say something. I love that.
And you would be amazing on there because of your vast experience and just, and they have stuff about stand-up. They have all sorts of things,
All right. I got to figure this out.
Yeah. But I'm in Clubhouse, Mark Sanderson. So those people who are on Clubhouse, I pop around there, but.
All right. Well, Mark, thank you so much once again.
Huge pleasure.
It really is. You're a nice guy and you know what you're talking about. Two things I love.
Can you put that on my tombstone?
Yes, I will take care of that if I outlive you, but chances are slim, Mark, slim. My 20s were rough. I think you're going to make it longer than me. If I was a betting man, but if I do outlive you, I will make sure that's on your tombstone.
It's always a pleasure, man. And I can't wait to see you in person.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
We'll have to do this for real. Talk to you soon, Mark. Right. Mark Sanderson, everybody.
Hey, woo! John Lear, thank you.
All right, my friend. I've got it.
You got it. Awesome.
I got it all. It always takes me a little bit, but I'll get it together and I'll we'll get it out there.
You working on anything now?
Yeah, like you, I've got a lot of things. Yes, I do. I have a lot of things in the tank ready to come out. The one that's probably getting the most right now is a comedy about a black husband and a white wife. And it's very funny and goes for the joke, but it also is really grounded in the Norman Lear kind of way and deals with racism. And it's so, it's really interesting team. And so that's exciting. And then I'm producing a commercial. A fancy schman, which, God, my career is so bizarre. But yeah, I'm producing a commercial right now, which is easy and fun. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it's
for a product.
Yeah, it's for a fancy phone product that they made me sign an NDA for, but you could probably guess. And so it's been fun. Yeah. So staying busy.
I speak with Ian frequently,
Give him a French kiss over the phone from me.
He has been cooking and literally makes a different dish every night and sends pictures of it. And he's become like an amazing chef during COVID. And he has not stopped. He's not repeated the same dish. And it's like fancy stuff. You're like, dude, he said, gets all the ingredients. And I said, you should do something like home or some kind of show or
live YouTube show or something.
Yeah. But his mom passed away last month. Yeah. She had lung cancer and she was fighting for a year. But that's always, we're getting to the age, where parents are like, you parents, my mom's 85 and she's in Palm Springs right now, but 85, you're like, how much, another 5 years, maybe.
Maybe.
Her dad lived to be 94. So
you never know. But Yeah, my wife's parents are both alive. Mine are both dead, and they died young, in their 70s. And it was brutal, horrible. But I don't know. In some ways, I think I dodged a bullet too. Just
Sure.
watching what my friends are going. Yeah, God, dying is getting
Last
old.
night,
Is
last night Shane Black was saying, he goes, once you hit about 55 or around, you move into this your realm. He goes, you realize the other side is shorter, and he said, there's so many things I want to do. And in you, he said, one thing I would say when you're young, don't waste time, because, we all do and
but
have.
that's what being young is about.
No,
Is dicking around and not worrying about what a 55-year-old man worries about. I mean, I get what he's saying, but that's impossible. I have two teenagers, and they don't give a fuck.
Right.
They're like, whatever. Oh,
Yeah.
a butterfly.
Shiny
object. I'm going that way.
Shiny spoon. Hey, no, you don't understand the time, But
I should go, dude. I should go. My wife is wanting to. I've seen it. She's wanting me to go down and film her.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Dude. So good. I thank you for reaching out.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah.
I get lost in my own world, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, I follow you on. You got to be on social media more.
I know.
I mean, literally.
I know.
Got so much to. I know it's a big pain in the ass, but
I got to do it.
And jump into Clubhouse and just mess around, because
Clubhouse seems to be the place for me. I got to do that.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to do it.
All right, John. Thanks, brother.
Later. Talk to you soon. Bye. Bye.